All right. How's everybody doing out there today? This is Gold Pilled here with the Gold Pilled stream. And I just want to do a relatively short update video on my buddy Brendon Lee O'Connell. And I wanted to do this because in my last video about Rogan, I touched on Brendon and I kind of lied about something. I said I'm not sure what Brendon's angle is, or what kind of narrative he's pushing, if he is an actual asset. And I kind of completely forgot about it, but I do have an idea of what angle he's pushing. And it just, completely slipped my mind with all the other info I needed to do with Rogan and his guests. So I'm going to do this little video to touch on what exactly that angle is and just some other little interesting information that Brendon puts out and information surrounding him and another contradiction of his. Because like I said, Brendon, he has really good information, but there is an angle to it, and there are contradictions in there that kind of don't make any sense. Now, we'll start off with the one with a contradiction, and this is kind of a big one here. So we're gonna do some screen sharing, and I got some video snippets and stuff to watch. So hopefully I don't get all this stuff confused and everything goes pretty smoothly here, because as you can see, I'm still starting out and I'm not very good at putting these videos together and just all the stuff that these high production value channels do, which if you just seen my last video with Rogan, the IIA operations are behind most of this stuff. That's why it's they're so good quality. So let's go watch a snippet here of a contradiction of Brendon.
It's saying what is self-evident. Russia is a backward shithole. Its weapons are old. Its weapons are easily defeated by US technology. If Lockheed Martin really want to pull out the toys, they will pull out the suborbital direct energy weapons, the kinetic energy weapons they have on suborbital platforms, and all the other goodies. The F-22 is unstoppable. They have 4. Now, before you're going, what about the mighty Su-57 stealth? They've got 4 of them, and 2 of them fly at any one time and are not operational. It's a crock. They'll be blown out of the sky. You need to put your PP back in your pants. You're not Donald Trump at a Miss Universe contest. The F-35 is not a dog. It doesn't dogfight well, but it's really hard to spot and track and fire missiles at, especially when you've got another dozen F-15Xs and F-16s and Wild Weasels also operating tactically in the region, facilitating the complete destruction and air superiority over the Ukraine. So don't give me this garbage that Russia can do diddly squat. All I see is a Kissinger and let me channel Henry's demon. No, I'm not going to do it. Henry Kissinger and associates going, let's get something happening in the Ukraine quick, real quick. At worst, he'll take a chunk of the Ukraine. At worst. It's great theater. It's keeping everybody busy. They're setting up the old multipolar world order at worst. And again, I don't even believe I think they're going to have big trouble doing that as well. Seriously. But look, we can't rule out something very bad happening. You can't rule that out when you've got weapons flying around the sky. But what they usually do is what the US State Department can't do, Henry Kissinger and the Kissinger networks of Kissinger and associates can do. They put Putin there. General Lebed was the real Russian nationalist. The military were up in arms. They were going to go after Putin and the KGB network associated with Kissinger and the East India Trading Company. And they knocked off Lebed before he had a chance in the helicopter crash in 2002. Then Putin came out and did his big purge of Berevotsky and all the rest, got Oleg Deripaska and humiliated him. It was a big show. And the same people are in charge to this day. It's just a big theatrical joke. This is always the spot from which we start. Theatrical joke. It's always theatre. Always. But does it get out of hand? Do the actors go off script? Does the script get flipped? Does things get out of control? Do lights fall from the ceiling? Does it rain and destroy the production? Yes, things happen. But right now, something's going on. There is a huge spanner has been dropped into the cogs of the machine, and something is going on over and above. Something not in the script. Have they woken up? Has the US elites woken up? You know, every time they go after Israel on that burgeoning high technology, cyber technology juggernaut and penetration of US high technology and critical infrastructure, GRU, penetration of Israel, out comes another COVID variant. Has someone finally said enough is enough? We're going to have to wait and find out. It's a very, very interesting time. I wouldn't like to take bets on anything. Holy flippity flop, ladies and gentlemen.
All right. So that's some interesting information right there that Brendon put out. And it kind of doesn't make any sense because he kind of even contradicts himself in that very same clip. He pretty much says Russia is an idiot and their military tech is obsolete and the US would blow them away. But then later in the video, he talks about how Kissinger and, all the other elites, they have control of Russia and can kind of manipulate them like puppets. Well, if they have control of Russia, these same groups, they're based, kind of in Israel. And Brendon's been harping about the high technology theft from the U.S. to Israel for a long time now. And that's a big chunk of what he talks about is how the elite, based in Israel, they're stealing all the U.S. high tech. Well, that same elite, a lot of them, they came from Russia back when Israel was created. So Israel, Russia, and even China, they're all controlled by the same elite. So if they've stolen and harvested all of our high tech, which they were probably involved in the making of our high tech, that means they have our high tech. So why wouldn't Russia have pretty much, that same technology we do, if it was all stolen to Israel? And, a lot of the elite there came from Russia. So, that doesn't make any sense there. But we'll move on from that. You ponder that, discern it some more, research it more if you want to. But that right there is a pretty big contradiction because, like I said, one of Brendon's main things is the high technology being stolen from the U.S. to Israel. But then he completely ignores the Israel, Russia, China, completely embed in the elite, rule all three of them. So they would have our same technology. All right, let's move on to just an interesting little bit of information Brendon put out here recently. And it relates to the IIA arena. So let's go watch a clip of that, and then we'll talk a little bit about it.
Like that, I don't like this style. No, at some stage we need a minimum standard, and you've got to start calling them out and saying, if you can't have a minimum standard of bankers, Wall Street, City of London, East India Trading Company, Davos, World Economic Forum, if you can't have that basic high technology transfer, breaking up the country, it's no point these people coming in a year later after we first said they're breaking up the country with COVID and creating hyperpolarization and using a dialectic, running both sides. If you can't talk about running both sides of the game, if you can't talk hypernormalization, Vladislav Slurkov, Henry Kissinger, running Joe Rogan, Alex Jones, Dr. Steve Pieczenik, all of these clowns are from the same paddock. Until we understand, just because someone says something I like doesn't mean it's going to help. There's no answer. There's no political lobbying. It's just more talk, more going, I'm angry. Are you angry? Yeah, I'm angry too. How angry are you? I'm very angry. Oh, and what about, are you angry? I am angry. Hey, that's a coincidence. I'm very angry too. And if we can't work out that we're just a fucking jerk-off fest, I don't know what to say. I'll say goodbye and good luck in the UN Smart City ghetto. If we cannot have a minimum standard with which we expect these two people to behave, if we don't have a minimum standard and articulate and says, if you can't say this narrative, you're full of shit. You're fake.
All right, so he's kind of slamming the alternative media truth community there about, he wants them to push a, specific narrative. And I agree that, that topic and area is very important, but that doesn't mean it has to be the only thing that, alternative media channels push. Because certain channels, they specialize in kind of certain areas. And it's good to get news and information on all different things, even if it's not, the most dire threat or the most important topic. He wants them all to push this one thing. And that, that's never going to happen. And as you've seen there, he did the little echo chamber thing. Oh, are you angry? Yeah, I'm angry. Kind of how I mentioned in the last video about Rogan. And then, if you've seen, he had a clip of Tim Pool pulled up there. He was interviewing Andrew Torba of Gab. And Brendon goes on to say, or speculate, I should say, that, all these alternative platforms like Gab, they're kind of created for a reason to get, the more right wing, kind of more bordering, white nationalism, white supremacist type people to have a platform to actually have no censorship, where they can talk, some nasty things about, bashing the Jews or taking action against them. And, in the future, all this information will be used against us, to pretty much shut us all down and shut the any free speech on the internet, and initiate like hate speech laws and stuff like that. So he theorizes that, any of these seemingly real censorship free channels, they'll just be used against us in the future. And that very well may be the case. And that clip there of Tim Pool, I will point out, because I went off on a little rant in the Rogan interview about Tim Pool. That's the clip where he's talking to Torba, and then it cuts off to old Luke Radowski, and they're giggling, having a good time, talking about, for the free speech to free speech. Well, that's Tim Pool sitting there in his $1 million mansion studio, who self-censored himself to being in the elite class pretty much through self-censorship. Oh, but he's there fighting for the First Amendment. Tim Pool is the biggest grifter. I would love to see him out in the street with nothing. That's what he deserves. He is a total POS for grifting on the back of hardworking conservative Americans, and even grifting off the crappy, crazy leftists that he started out as. He felt alienated by them, so he's pandering to the conservatives now. And then within 15-20 seconds of Luke speaking, he came right out with shilling one of his classes, some jiu-jitsu class. Make sure you go out and pay for a class from me. These guys are pathetic, absolutely pathetic grifters. And, that $1 million mansion studio they're sitting in talking about the First Amendment, that was all bought with your dollars, because sheeple out there are dumb enough to send them money. Now, likely, it probably wasn't bought with all, ordinary people's dollars, because I'm sure Tim Pool's receives some of those mysterious checks that come in every month. I'm sure there's behind the scenes money old Timmy Pool's got, and probably a lot of that is paid for his $1 million mansion. Not to mention the self-censorship he does to get YouTube shekels. And with the kind of views that he's bringing in now, YouTube shekels are still pretty good shekels. So that whole thing disgusts me. How they, they just use, ordinary people just to climb up their back to success. and let everyone else just stay in the mud. All right, that's another rant there. So let's move on here to what Brendon's actual kind of angle is. If he's an asset, what's the alternative narrative that they want out there with Brendon? Well, I have an idea of that. And one part of it is I do believe he considers himself Christian. And every now and again, he puts out some Jeebus cards. And you'll see that in a video clip that I play here. But the main angle of Brendon is he wants you to engage in politics. He thinks that's the answer to all this, is for people to get out and engage in politics, to approach politicians, to approach military, high-ranking military. If you would know anybody in intelligence, approach them. Try to get the information into their hands so that they can turn around and fight for you. That's Brendon's angle. Actual, engaging, pretty much playing their game. We're not gonna win by playing their game. I'm sorry, but that's what he thinks the solution is. And just if you're a smart individual, that's very naive to think that engaging in politics is going to solve anything. Because right now, I don't see anything that can solve this. The whole thing needs to crumble and burn, or the people need to get together, actually come together in big enough numbers, and actual action needs taken. And by action, you can kind of catch my drift on what I mean with action, and that's physical action, because there's nothing going to change. So let's see what we got next here. We're going to go to some more Brendon clips and see this engage in politics angle here.
But you need to know, if you want to learn, this is my UN document. There's a lot of excellent information in here. A lot. It's got very good indexes. And we can go along to my High Court synopsis, Appendix 8, High Court synopsis, biggest hate speech trial in history. The Israeli ambassador came out against me. The Israeli deputy foreign minister came out against me. It's never happened before in history. I got on the record Israeli intelligence activity. I got on the record, I was talking to high-level people that was interacting. You don't think that might have something to do with the continuing pressure on the Israeli state? That's why they're teaming up with Russia, as people like me took things to the authorities and got it into the public domain, talking with judges and lawyers and high-level intelligence people and state counterterrorism. You don't think that was a good achievement? Why don't you reward those people? Because what's going to happen is in the future, when people see that no one gives a shit, serious people won't come forward. They'll just see you got to be a pop culture bullshit young Turk produced piece of garbage from Denology Clear for psychological profiling before you get out there and in the public domain. You have to be cross-promoted and energized by they're like little energizer points. The Alex Joneses, the Joe Rogans, that's where you go to be energized, don't you, Whitney Webb, with Tim Dillon?
That within the next 200 years, we're going to go into a very serious deep ice age. I think Alex's point is that getting sick, they're also owning said
it ain't organic. And
now he just says there, whatever he did, to get himself into trouble, that was an achievement, and people should be congratulating him and stuff. Well, what has that accomplished, Brendon? Like, if that's genuine, organic circumstances you went through with all this and, being thrown in jail, what did that achieve other than kind of ruining your life? It achieved nothing. But you think it's a win? That's where, he wants you to engage, go out there, and it doesn't solve anything. And that little A part that I just skipped through was Whitney Webb getting her name dropped on Rogan. And I apologize when I mute and unmute my mic. The hotkey that I picked for it actually opens up Brave's Help Center. So every time I'm going to hit that, it's going to switch over to there. But I'll kick it back to the this video tab. So let's move on.
If you go and you read this stuff, you can flick through this, very easily flick through stuff, and you will go down to commentary on racial vilification legislation. And I even put a quote from the Bible. Likewise, the tongue is a small part of the body, but it makes great boasts. Consider what a great forest is set on fire by a small spark. The tongue also is a fire, a world of evil amongst the parts of the body. It corrupts the whole person, sets the whole course of his life on fire, and is itself set on fire by hell. All kinds of animals, birds, reptiles, and creatures of the sea are being tamed and have been tamed by man. But no man can tame the tongue. It is a restless evil, full of deadly poison. It's very true. I don't actually disagree with some of the ideology, which is they said it starts off small, then gets big. It's not necessarily untrue. We should watch what we say. We should follow the law on incitement and other things. It's better for everybody for a multitude of reasons. And then I look down and have another Bible quote, Matthew 23:33. You snakes, you brood of vipers, how will you escape being condemned to hell? Because unfortunately, Jesus would have been caught up in this legislation when he took on the leadership of his day, the scribes and Pharisees. And that's the great irony of it all. Words that Jesus spoke to the religious and political leader of his day from the temperance by the evening. It is an excellent, there's section 80B, conduct likely to racially harass. 1 charge of that and 3 charges of that. It's all there. Everything you want to go on to. The freedom to offend is an integral component of freedom of speech. There is no right to be offended. And on and on and on. You need to read it and understand hate speech legislation. It's coming our way. We need to understand now, summing up, we've got 10 minutes. We've got to get the narratives out there. People are trying. Tammy's on the way. We're going to be doing much more with the Partisan, AmericanPartisan.org. These guys are serving retired Army, Special Forces, SOCOM, all the rest. We're going to be doing more stuff in terms of graphics designers. I need graphics designers, good ones who have an understanding of a lot of the issues so I don't have to micromanage. Then we also want to go in and we want to produce 4 to 5 page glossy A5 booklets that you can hand into the FBI, any form of intelligence people you may know or may not know, or you know someone who knows someone, the FBI, anyone involved in the military, and of course those who have relatives in the military. And it's got to be glossy, it's got to be high quality. And before we go on, we're going to end on something. This is me and Louis. Thank you to the Iraqi guy who I'm about to mention in 1 second. Let me just put this on pause. Okay, I want to read an email from an Iraqi. Then I want to show you some footage of myself and another Iraqi, Louis in Sydney, handing out flyers. Don't tell me this can't be effective. Let me read. Now, that is a Canadian politician above. And let me read the email to you. I don't want to show it. It's titled, Israeli Espionage Briefing Document Given to Former Canadian MP and Leader of the PPC. I have no idea who that is. Hello, Brendon. I'm an Iraqi-born Canadian citizen. I've always been interested in seeking the truth since the Bill Cooper and Daryl Bradford Smith days. Oh, the heady days. You didn't have to agree with them, but man, they were raw and they were real. But no one has summarised the narrative as perfectly as you have. That's very kind of you. I'd say it's not a good indication to me. It just shows you how shit it is online. I've been viewing your work since 2017 and you have motivated me to reach out to people in various circles. You quite often tell people in your videos. That's why I decided to use this opportunity to do just that. In Toronto on January the 22nd, 2022, there was a worldwide freedom rally at Queen's Park to protest against COVID lockdowns and vaccination mandates. There are a number of prominent members of local and federal government in attendance, most notably Maxime Bernier, a former federal MP and now leader of the People's Party of Canada. I was able to speak to him and give him your briefing document titled Briefing Document, Israeli High Technology and Espionage. Now, I wrote that in Beirut, just down the road from the massive explosion in an Airbnb, Ramsey Airbnb, with Sufyan. And that's the same briefing document that Jason Funes got into the hands of DeSantis' outside circle. I told him that these are matters that concern national security to not only the United States but countries all around the world. I also attached with the briefing an article. An article that relates to former PM Stephen Harper being a chairman of the board for an Israeli-based company in Toronto that specializes in Israeli security tech. I hope that this makes a difference somehow. I want to thank you for motivating me and giving me the courage to get out and participate in the politics and grassroots activism. God bless you, my Iraqi friend. I have linked the article that I mentioned below with links to the event, etc., and attached a picture as some proof I was there. Sorry, it was too hectic to record a video. Thank you. And then he's got a link to that big gathering. And that's the guy there. I don't know Canadian politics, but this is the work that has to be done. Speaking of Iraqis, and as he said, I said, God bless you. You made my day when you said that. I said, yeah, well, I guess after having my country blown to pieces and humiliated, I'm pretty motivated. And that was the same with Louis. And let's get over to that.
All right. So in that clip there, he kind of talked about his UN document. And then he kind of played the Jeebus card there a little bit, pandered to the Jeebus crowd. And then he moved on to, what plans he has coming up to engage in politics, I guess. He has a couple of things he's doing. And then he goes over an email he got from some Canadian. He sent him a picture with a politician. And that Canadian managed to give that politician the Israeli espionage briefing document that Brendon created. And I'm sure that Canadian politician really cares about that document that he was given. And then a little interesting info. Brendon says that he created that briefing document while he was in Beirut, some blocks away from that big explosion that happened there at the port warehouse or whatever. So if he's some kind of agent, that's a curious connection. He just happened to be in Beirut. Like I said, with his globe hopping to all these, oddball countries, he can just pop to each one, easily. Iraq, Singapore, then New Zealand, and he's in Beirut, and now he was in the Southern Americas, and I believe he's in Mexico now, but yep, he was in Beirut there. Well, blast. I'm not, insinuating anything, but that's curious that he was there when that happened. Now, going back to the Canadian there, boy, he sure seemed so proud that he got out, went to a COVID rally, and was able to approach politicians and to give them a pamphlet. I'm sorry, brother from Canada, but you wasted your day, because they probably threw that in the trash as soon as you were out of their sight. They don't care. They are not going to help you, and they're not going to change their mind about what they're doing. I've seen this done numerous times. People going out and giving, politicians pamphlets, or trying to inform them of stuff, just speaking to them. And it doesn't matter. They absolutely do not care. In fact, the majority of these people, politicians, they've signed pledges. They've actually signed pledges to Israel, and who knows what other kind of pledges that they've signed that we have no idea about. They are signed in writing to be beholden to somebody else. They do not care about the little person, and engaging with them is going to be a waste of your time. And, if Brendon would hear me saying this, I'm sure he'd be giving me a scolding and, doing nothing, it's not the answer. Well, engaging in politics and playing their game is not the answer, because you can look back 100 years. They've had this game in the palm of their hand the entire time. And I'd say the U.S. was gone from the Civil War. The Civil War is where the U.S. was gone. Civil War was orchestrated for a reason, and the aftermath of the Civil War was, moving the agenda ahead. And then after the turn of the century, the international banks came in, And, and they just started, we were a puppet. We were puppeted in the World War I, then World War II, all serving the agenda. The game is gone. They know the game. They own the game. They're the owners of the game. You're not going to play their game and think you're going to win. That is absolutely ridiculous. And a smart person like Brendon should know that. That is why I think he's an agent. Because, he should know better. And I don't believe a smart guy like him is that naive. To be that naive and supposedly be in the know as much as Brendon is, that would insinuate that he has like a 70 IQ. And Brendon's a smart guy. So that's just the angle he's pushing, and that's the counter narrative they're letting out with Brendon. Like I said, limited hangouts. Certain percentage truth, and the other percentage, lies, or the counter narrative that they want to instill in people's heads. That's what's going on here. So let's watch another clip of Brendon here, and this is where he harks back to the times of him being in Australia and going out and handing pamphlets with his buddy Louis. So let's go do that.
Louis handing out some flyers. We gave some to the local state police. I told the local state police, did they know that an Israeli company, Variant, does all their data intercepts for state police and the Australian Federal Police? I didn't mention that, of course, the Israeli company Amdocs does all the billing for Telstra, the largest telco. These are things the BDS movement can go after, and these are also a national security risk. And I hope one day we'll see banners in these marches discussing exactly that. Hey, guys, did you know an Israeli company does your data intercepts? Variant, they do the data intercepts for the police.
They know nothing, dude.
Local and federal police. Amdocs, Israeli company, did the billing for Telstra, so they know who we're calling. Flyers talking about.
Boy, it really looked like those officers were interested in what Brendon had to say, didn't it? Out there trying to inform people about what's going on, they just walk away. Yep, you were achieving something, Brendon. You leading up this video, they were printing out on a home printer pages of stuff. They'd cut them in half and hand them out. And has that accomplished anything, Brendon, since 2014? Going out and handing those pamphlets? It's accomplished nothing there, buddy. I'm sorry. Let's continue.
We should be very cautious with our language. Let's just be professional. Remember, part of the legislation, it's not what you say, it's how you say it. So we need to get across multiple issues, and obviously this went.
And that's an important point with what he said with the hate speech legislation. That it's not so much what you say, it's how you say it. So if you're ever faced with something like that, remember, it's not so much what you say, it's how you say it. So, watch how you say things.
Over, but let's get the background we want up. Let's get a new background up. Sorry, I'm not more sort of finely on tune, but we will set a standard that if you cannot, you should be able to say to people, if this is the minimum. If they can't talk about this, they're full of shit. They're not real. When you watch Joe Rogan or Alex Jones or a David Icke or a Tim Cast IRL, you are watching and Rick Wiles on True News. Yeah, but Rick Wiles talks about this stuff, Brendon. Yeah, he's capturing a demographic market. He then begs for another $250,000 to expand his studio, and then he sacks Edward Saltz and Matt Scouts. He gets rid of all his original people because they start calling him out and saying, what are we doing? Rick Wiles is a plant, and you don't get it. If you're just going to sit there and capture demographics and tell people to sit on their ass and give advice like, you better wake up, bullhorn the White House. No, you engage in politics. You get off the internet and you get out amongst the people. Just like that's two Iraqi people doing the job. doing the job. We have got to get a minimum standard. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to end it there. Sorry it wasn't a bit better done. I want to start doing more and more each day, and we'll try and get across a broader range of issues we want to talk.
All right, so there, he took another jab at the truth community. And what he says about the truth community, I 100% agree with. And that's the same conclusion that I've come to, as being part of the truth community and all the research and observation I've done, into it. It's the same conclusion. They're practically all of them are controlled to some level and to some degree for some reason. It might be a small reason, it might be a big reason, but you practically can't fully trust anything on there. And then he mentions True News, which I've kind of completely forgot about them recently. I used to watch True News, and for a while there, after Trump got elected, they had some really good information, and but they got kicked off YouTube, and it was kind of their own website that they were doing their videos, and I just kind of got bored with the same old thing and the super Jeebus cards that Rick Wiles plays, and so I kind of moved off, away from them because they weren't teaching me, really anything new that I didn't already have or, couldn't get elsewhere. And I was completely unaware that, they sacked Matt Scows and the other Edward or whatever his name was. So that's news to me, but Rick Wiles was a big grifter. He loves some of that Jesus money. So, but then you heard Brendon say there, you need to engage in politics. That's Brendon's angle, get out there and engage in politics. And like I said, I'm not going to harp on this too much more, but that's not the solution. It's not going to change a damn thing. You can go out there, you can hand pamphlets to every politician in Congress, and all you did was waste some trees that the pamphlets are printed on and wasted your time to go do that because, like I said, knowing from, my U.S. government, they've signed pledges. They're, who they're beholden to is signed away in ink, and they're not going to change it. Even the military people, especially if they're in higher positions, they want to protect those positions and, their careers. And likely if, they're high up there, they didn't get there by not playing ball. So, they're not going to change their mind if you present them with pamphlets. Even the police, if you go to the police and try to, give them information or pamphlets, they're not going to do anything. Heck, the police are part of a fraternal order, the FOP, Fraternal Order of Police. They're not going to take any action, on your behalf. They're part of that, part of the fraternal club. And let's say by chance you do have an oddball, one that might try to do something, they're going to get shut down by their superiors. And then at that point, they can either keep pressing the matter and risk losing their career and livelihood, or they can shut up and fall in line. And like I said, shekels make people do many things, and fall in line is one of them. Even though the shekel amount is just your living, people don't want to give up their living, to step out of line. Or if you would go higher up the ladder to, maybe someone in intelligence, FBI, CIA or whatever, they're not going to do anything. If they tried to do anything, their superiors are going to shut it down. And, then they have the same option, that a police would. Either continue to press it and risk getting your position changed to some, obscure other country, out in the middle of nowhere, or, demoted, or you're in the right intelligence community, you might just end up missing. So, they're not going to do anything. This whole engage in politics and get information out to the people, of power. I'm sorry, it's not going to work. I'm sorry, Brendon. You're sending people down a false path, trying, to tell them to do that. The only benefit I see of people doing that is maybe they would help wake up other people, other, ordinary individual people. Because, in my opinion, that's the answer. We need to wake up the ordinary person, not engage in politics. We need to get as many people woke up to what's really going on as possible. Because only when we can rally the masses can we, then move forward and hopefully, finally real action may occur. And you can catch my drift on what I mean by real action. But that's the only change. That's the only way we're going to achieve change, to awaken the masses and, move. And that's why, I don't mind the alternative media truth community, because, even though a lot of these people, they're not, saying specifically what Brendon wants them to say, they're still touching on topics that wake people up to all the lies and deception. And the more people we manage to wake up, the better. Because there's going to come a time where things are probably going to get so bad, enslavement-wise, that, we're going to need as many people, seeing things a little more clearly, so action can be taken. So that's what I think the solution is. And I pretty well covered Brendon's counter narrative that comes along with him and his existence here online and in the truth community. And I'm still leaning towards he's shady, and very likely an asset still. Like I said, even though I love his info, and I encourage you to watch all his info, because, the real info he puts out is good information, and it's good for waking up. So take that in. But, just be careful, of his counter narrative, the engage in politics. It's not going to work. So I'm going to end this video here with a couple clips from another video I seen here of a relatively new channel I just came across. It's actually still on YouTube. I don't know how it's survived, but it's called The Film Archives. And they've had a lot of interesting stuff up here lately. And sadly, some of the videos are really long that I just can't sit through. But the headline, is a good topic I'd like to know more about, but not 11 hours. And a lot of their stuff's kind of like C-SPAN. I won't go into that. I'm going to make a separate little video about them here after this one. But let's watch these clips. This is regarding how the CIA, and which this would apply to any other intelligence community, this is how they create assets. And this video is titled "My Secret Life as a CIA Assassin." But this is how they acquire their assets. And this is how they create their backstories, for those agents. And this is related because, if you've seen or watched my Brendon O'Connell video, we go over his UN document stuff. I keep mentioning how, all this history on Brendon is kind of building the perfect backstory, of a truth fighter activist, fighting for you. When in reality, it could just be a backstory, to disguise, who he really is, and that's an intelligence asset. So, to start out, I think he's just going to give an introduction to who this guy is, and then we're going to skip ahead to when he was approached by the CIA, and, kind of was called upon, and then, actually went into duty. So let's get over there and watch that.
After his college graduation, Roland Haas was recruited by the CIA. Serving for 30 years, he worked in many countries, including Germany, Iran, Afghanistan, and India. Next, his new book, Enter the Past Tense, describes his life as an assassin for the intelligence agency. This is an hour.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Barnes & Noble. For nearly 30 years, Roland Haas worked for the CIA, extracting Soviet special forces and their families from East Germany, assassinating international drug dealers, and carrying out other undercover and clandestine missions as needed by the Central Intelligence Agency, who recruited him when he was a student at Purdue University in the early 70s. At times, he was tortured physically and psychologically. The stress caused him to turn to alcohol and drugs. In his new memoir, Enter the Past Tense, Roland shares his extraordinary life as a CIA assassin and recovering alcoholic. A life.
Okay, that kind of gives a little history on him. And as you'll see, this video is from a Book TV C-SPAN. Now, I don't know if C-SPAN still plays anything good like this currently, but C-SPAN used to be a pretty good source of information for, obscuring more dry political topics. And I've noticed that this channel, the Film Archives, a lot of their videos kind of are C-SPAN stuff. So, like I said, I'll go over that. My next video will be a quick one about the Film Archives. So, let's skip ahead to where the CIA recruited this Roland Haas. We need to go to 520.
I underwent intensive weapons training, weapons familiarization, things like that. This progressed for another year. Then all of a sudden, the next spring, he said, "Okay, Roland, it's time. You're ready. It's time to go do what you signed on to do." And I thought, great, I can do this. But then he explained what that was going to mean. I could not just leave Purdue University, and I could not just resign my commission, because what they needed for someone to be truly undercover, and I was going to be used at first for drug interdiction, they needed somebody who was dirty, who at least looked dirty. And here again, being naive, I said, okay, what does this mean? He said, well, you're going to have to get thrown out of school, and you're going to have to get drummed out of the Naval ROTC, the Navy. Didn't sound too good. After that, he said, and the way you do that is you're going to get arrested. That sounded even worse. My parents were German immigrants. They came over shortly after World War II. And if you're familiar with European parents, one of the biggest joys in their lives is bragging about their kids. My mother had a huge family. Everybody's bragging about my cousins, and my father came from a huge family. Not only was I about to take that away from them, the fact that they could brag about me, but I was about to become a source of intense shame and upset, because nobody turns to the relatives and says, my son was thrown out of school, my son was arrested. But at that point, it's something I had to do. So I was told, okay, what you do is you take this camera, and this camera belonged to the Naval Public Affairs Office, and you drive down to Indianapolis to this address. It's a pawn shop. You pawn the camera, and you come back and wait. Pretty soon you'll get arrested. Camera's worth enough, it's going to be a felony. I did it. I drove down, came back and waited, and I waited, and I waited, and couldn't even get arrested. They couldn't figure this out. It got to the point where I had to walk into the police station and say, did anybody report a missing camera? Because I'm the guy who took it, and I'm having these horrible pangs of conscience, and I just want to come clean. Police still didn't know what to do with me at that point. I looked like a crazy man. They sent me home. I sat there and waited, and a few days later, ironically, right after watching The Godfather with my roommates who went to the movie theater, knock comes on the door. It's the West Lafayette Police Department. Now, not only did they take me seriously, but they came with what seemed like the whole darn police department, all of them in leather jackets. This was a big thing to hit West Lafayette, Indiana, because along with the camera, coincidentally, I'd also worked at a bookstore. Someone had started a fire at the bookstore, and someone had started a fire in the armory, the ROTC armory, and stolen weapons. So the police naturally put two and two together, and it must be me. So now I'm not only faced with felony theft, but arson and grand larceny. So I'm sitting in jail, and I call my parents. Hi, Mom. Hi, Roland. How are you? I've been better. I'm in jail. Jail, what did you do? Arson, grand larceny, and conspiracy. You could hear the phone go dead on the other, and just the shock as her jaw dropped open. Long story short, it's in the book. They put up the bail money. I was drummed out of Purdue, told I could never come back. I was drummed out of the service, said it would be a dishonorable discharge, and I was a free man, so to speak. But I had no future there. What I had to do then is I had to go to Europe. My first mission, it was explained to me, would take me to the Middle East. So I applied to the university in Munich because being fluent in German, of German parentage, it was very easy for me to get in. And an interesting thing about European, at least German universities at the time, is they don't test. They don't test you in any courses you take until it's time for you to graduate. Which makes for a very interesting scenario after 4 years in college when a lot of kids get a call from their parents saying, aren't you graduating this year? And oh my God. Because then you have to take a test on every course you ever took. But it made it easy for me because all I had to do is sign up for the classes, and they would stamp the fact that I signed up in my Studienbuch, which is my book, my records, and I got credit for the course, and you didn't really ever have to show up for class. So all of a sudden, I have a great cover. I go home one day. I was living with my aunt and uncle outside of Munich in a little town called Unterpfaffenhofen, for those of you who might speak German. That one's even hard for people who speak German. And I told them that I wanted to go and see India. And they thought I was crazy to begin with anyway. I said, sure, go ahead. I packed a backpack, a sleeping bag, and I headed east. I was supposed to go through Turkey, Iran, Afghanistan, Pakistan.
All right, so you heard there from him, kind of how they set up his backstory for him, and I didn't start it early enough, but he was going to Purdue College, and he was in the NROTC, the Navy, whatever officer program, and he applied for other branches. Officer schools. So he was approached by the CIA in the Navy office, and he agreed to them, and he said, all right, I'll continue doing what you're doing, and we'll contact you when the time's ready. So he continued college in the ROTC for like a year or two, and then, out of nowhere, they approached him, and they're like, the time has come. And that's when, they led him to being arrested. And he said, the camera, pawning the camera didn't do the job, but coincidentally, the fires, got him those charges. I'm sure that was coincidentally. That was probably planned by the intelligence to get those pinned on him. And like I said, that set up the perfect backstory for him. And then if you heard when he mentions Germany and being in college there, he would just sign up for the classes, for whatever degree, and they would just rubber stamp that they were completed. So, there's a college education without doing any of the work, just all written off. So, I play that clip, so you can relate it to Brendon. Like I said, go watch my video on Brendon. And I apologize that video was done before I got my better microphone. But I kind of wanted to maybe go back and redo all them videos, with a better mic. But it's too much stuff I don't have time for. But I think they're pretty tolerable. But watch that BOC video I did. Because his backstory, could very well, be just that. We seen his college transcript in that UN document. That could easily, be rubber stamped off. It seems like he has an impressive resume, but, how much of that, is real? Because in that video, I play a clip of Brendon talking where he's from in Australia. is like a military / intelligence like mega hub. You know, that specific region is just home to all these intelligence, operations, all these military bases, all these high level goings on there. So he's from, the ideal area to be recruited, into something like this. So I don't know. You guys decide for yourself. I have my opinion, about what's going on here with Brendon. But whatever conclusion you come to, just remember, separate the wheat from the chaff. There is usually good stuff in everything. You just need to discern it and put the rest aside. And Brendon has a lot of good stuff. So separate the wheat from the chaff, and you should be all good. Now we're going to wrap that up here because we're about pushing an hour. I didn't think it was going to take this long, but all right. Everybody, you take care out there. Be safe. Start thinking, on a higher level. Start having more critical discernment. And take the gold pill if you can find it. All right, everyone. This is Gold Pilled signing off. Peace.